There is a calculation that every serious investor knows and almost nobody explains. It takes about 3 seconds to do in your head. No calculator required. No spreadsheet, no financial software. 3 seconds, and you have a number that tells you exactly how long it will take for your money to double. At any interest rate, in any account, under any set of conditions. It is called the Rule of 72. And the reason most people have never heard of it is not that it is complicated. It is that it is almost insultingly simple. And simple things rarely get taught in environments that benefit from you feeling like finance requires expertise you do not have. Here is the rule. Take the number 72, divide it by your interest rate. The result is the approximate number of years it takes for your money to double. That is it. That is the entire rule. 72 divided by 6% equals 12 years. Your money doubles in approximately 12 years at a 6% return. 72 divided by 8% equals 9 years. 72 divided by 12% equals 6 years. 72 divided by 1% equals 72 years, which is roughly what your money is doing in a traditional savings account at most major banks right now, and which is exactly as bad as it sounds. 3 numbers, 1 division, a complete picture of how your money grows. My name is Arthur. This channel is about understanding how money actually works. Not how we wish it worked, but how it actually behaves when it meets a human brain. Subscribe if that sounds useful. New video every week. Here is everything you need to know about the Rule of 72, where it comes from, how to use it, and how applying it consistently changes the way you see every financial decision you make. Let us start with why doubling matters so much. Most people think about investment growth the way they think about salary increases. Linearly. If I earn 6% on $10,000 this year, I earn $600. Next year, another $600. Year after that, another $600. After 10 years, I have earned $6,000 in interest, and my original $10,000 is now $16,000. This is not how compound interest works. And the gap between the linear version and the actual version is where most of the wealth in the world is created or lost. When you earn 6% on $10,000 and leave the interest in the account, your second year's return is not calculated on $10,000. It is calculated on $10,600. Your third year's return is calculated on $11,236. Each year, the base grows. Each year, the return is calculated on the new, larger base. This is compound interest, interest earned on interest, and its long-term effect is not additive, it is exponential. The Rule of 72 makes the exponential effect visible and immediate. Instead of trying to calculate what $10,000 becomes at 6% over 30 years, a calculation that requires either a formula or a spreadsheet, you can use the Rule of 72 to see it in stages. At 6%, money doubles every 12 years. So $10,000 becomes $20,000 at year 12. $20,000 becomes $40,000 at year 24. $40,000 becomes $80,000 at year 36. In 36 years at 6%, $10,000 has become $80,000 without you adding a single dollar. Not $100,000, not $1 million, but $80,000 from a single $10,000 investment held without interruption for 36 years. That is 8 times your original investment. That is the compounding engine running at its most basic, unassisted pace. Now let us talk about where the Rule of 72 actually came from, because it is not a modern approximation invented for financial bloggers. It is a genuine mathematical relationship that has been documented for centuries. The rule is an approximation of the exact doubling time formula, which involves the natural logarithm of 2 divided by the interest rate. The natural logarithm of 2 is approximately 0.693, and if you multiply that by 100 and round it, you get 69.3. For very precise calculations, analysts sometimes use 69.3 rather than 72. But 72 is used in practice because it divides cleanly by many of the most commonly encountered interest rates: 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 9, 12, 18, and 24. The rounding error at these rates is small, typically less than 1%, and the convenience of working with whole numbers is significant. The first known reference to the rule appears in a 1494 book by the Italian mathematician Luca Pacioli, the same man who formalized double-entry bookkeeping and who collaborated with Leonardo da Vinci. Pacioli described a rule for doubling time that used the number 72, citing it as a practical tool for merchants and financiers. The rule has been in use, in essentially the same form, for more than 500 years. That longevity is not an accident. Simple, accurate tools survive because they work. The Rule of 72 works because it gives you a mental model for exponential growth that your brain can actually hold and apply in real time, which is something the exact formula does not. Now let us apply the Rule of 72 to some specific scenarios that matter for your financial life right now. Scenario 1. The high-yield savings account versus the traditional savings account. The national average interest rate on a traditional savings account at a major bank in the United States is currently hovering around 0.5%. Apply the Rule of 72. 72 divided by 0.5 equals 144 years. Your money doubles in approximately 144 years in a standard savings account at most banks. You will not be alive to collect. A high-yield savings account currently offers rates in the range of 4 to 5% depending on the institution. Apply the Rule of 72 to 4%. 72 divided by 4 equals 18 years. Your money doubles in 18 years. Apply it to 5%. 72 divided by 5 equals 14.4 years. The difference between 0.5% and 5% is not a difference in return. It is the difference between a doubling time of 144 years and a doubling time of 14 years. For money that is sitting in a savings account waiting to be used, this is a decision worth making. The accounts are federally insured. The risk profile is essentially identical. The only variable is whether you chose to move the money or not. If you have $20,000 in a traditional savings account earning 0.5%, after 14 years, you have approximately $21,400. If that same $20,000 is in a high-yield savings account earning 5%, after 14 years, it has doubled to approximately $40,000. The difference is not effort. It is not risk. It is not discipline. It is an account selection. Scenario 2. The fee trap. One of the most powerful applications of the Rule of 72 is not to interest rates. It is to fees. Because fees compound in the same direction as returns, they are a negative return. The Rule of 72 applies to them with equal precision. The average actively managed mutual fund in the United States charges an expense ratio of approximately 1% per year. Some charge significantly more, 1.5%, 2%, even 2.5%. Index funds, by contrast, typically charge between EO-0.3 and EO-2%. Apply the Rule of 72 to a 1% fee. 72 divided by 1 equals 72. Your fees double the effective cost to your returns every 72 years. That sounds manageable until you realize what it actually means in compounded terms. Here is the calculation most fund companies prefer you not do. If you invest $100,000 in a fund earning 8% gross return but charging a 1% fee, your net return is 7%. Your money doubles every 10.3 years instead of every 9 years. The 1-year delay in each doubling cycle costs you approximately 11% of your final balance over 30 years. On a $100,000 investment compounded over 30 years, the difference between an 8% return and a 7% return is approximately $125,000. The fee did not take 1% of your money. Over 30 years, it took $125,000. Apply it to a 2% fee. Your net return on an 8% gross investment is 6%. Your money doubles every 12 years instead of every 9. Over 30 years, the difference between an 8% return and a 6% return on $100,000 is approximately $340,000. A 2% fee, compounded over 30 years, cost you $340,000 on a $100,000 investment. This is why fee selection is one of the highest impact decisions in personal finance, and why the Rule of 72 is the tool that makes the cost of fees legible. Scenario 3. Inflation and purchasing power. The Rule of 72 works in reverse as well. You can use it to calculate how long it takes for inflation to cut your purchasing power in half. The Federal Reserve targets an annual inflation rate of 2%. Apply the Rule of 72. 72 divided by 2 equals 36 years. At the Fed's target rate, the purchasing power of a dollar is cut in half every 36 years. In other words, $100 today will buy approximately $50 worth of goods in 36 years. But inflation has not always run at 2%. In the 1970s, annual inflation in the United States reached double digits, peaking above 13% in 1979. At 13% inflation, The rule of 72 tells you that purchasing power is cut in half every 5.5 years. In a decade of high inflation, $100 loses approximately 75% of its purchasing power. This is why holding large amounts of cash over long time periods is not a neutral, risk-free choice. It is a guaranteed, if gradual, loss of purchasing power. The rate of loss is determined by inflation, and the rule of 72 tells you exactly how fast that loss compounds. If your savings account earns 0.5%, and inflation is running at 3%, your real return is negative 2.5%. Apply the rule of 72 to 2. 5%, 72 divided by 2. 5 equals 28.8 years. The real purchasing power of your money is being cut in half approximately every 29 years, even as the nominal balance grows slightly. You are falling behind while technically having more. Scenario 4. Debt. The rule of 72 applies to debt with the same precision that it applies to investments. And in the opposite direction. When you carry a balance on a high-interest debt, the debt is doubling at the rate implied by the rule of 72. The average credit card interest rate in the United States is currently approximately 20%. Apply the rule of 72. 72 divided by 20 equals 3.6 years. At 20% interest, a credit card balance doubles in 3.5 years if you make no payments. If you carry a $5,000 credit card balance at 20% interest and make no payments, after 3.5 years, you owe $10,000. After 7 years, $20,000. After 10.5 years, $40,000. You did not spend an additional dollar. The interest alone, compounding at 20%, turned $5,000 into $40,000 in a decade. This is why minimum payments on high-interest debt are one of the most financially destructive behaviors a person can maintain. The minimum payment on $5,000 at 20% is roughly $100 per month, barely enough to cover the interest accruing, let alone reduce the principal. The balance does not decrease at minimum payment. It stays flat or grows. The rule of 72 is running in the background the entire time. The practical implication: any debt with an interest rate above 8 or 9% has a doubling time measured in years, not decades. At 10%, debt doubles in 7 years. At 15%, it doubles in less than 5. At 20%, as we have seen, it doubles in 3.5. The urgency of eliminating high-interest debt is not a moral position. It is the direct mathematical implication of the rule of 72 running against you instead of for you. Scenario 5. Real estate and the illusion of the great return. The rule of 72 is a useful reality check on claims about investment returns in any asset class. Real estate is one where the numbers are frequently presented in ways that benefit from the listener not applying the rule of 72. The average long-term appreciation rate for residential real estate in the United States, adjusted for inflation, is approximately 1 to 2% per year. Apply the rule of 72 to 1%, money doubles in 72 years. At 2%, money doubles in 36 years. When a real estate professional tells you that homes in a particular market have doubled in value over the past 10 years, apply the rule of 72 in reverse. If something doubles in 10 years, it is growing at approximately 2% per year. That is a genuine return, not typical for all markets, and not guaranteed to continue, but real. When someone tells you homes have doubled in 20 years, that is approximately 6% per year. After inflation, the real return may be close to zero. The rule of 72 does not make real estate a bad investment. It gives you a way to quickly translate headline claims, prices doubled, into actual annual return rates, which is the only number that allows meaningful comparison with other investments. Now let us talk about the most powerful application of the rule of 72, which is using it not just to evaluate a single investment, but to think about how starting age interacts with doubling cycles. This is where the rule of 72 becomes genuinely transformational. Assume you invest $10,000 at age 25 and earn 7% per year. The rule of 72 tells you that at 7%, money doubles every 10.3 years, approximately every 10 years. Age 25, $10,000. Age 45, $40,000. Age 55, $80,000. Age 65, $160,000. One investment. No additional contributions. $160,000 from a single $10,000 investment made at 25. Now assume the same investment is made at age 35 instead of 25. Age 35, $10,000. Age 45, $20,000. Age 55, $40,000. Age 65, $80,000. Same investment, same return, but you start 10 years later and get only 4 doubling cycles instead of 6 before retirement. The result at 65 is $80,000 instead of $160,000. The 10-year delay costs you exactly 1 doubling cycle, and 1 doubling cycle is always worth exactly half of everything that follows. This is the mathematical basis for the advice to start investing early, stated in terms that make the cost of delay concrete. It is not that starting early is marginally better. It is that each decade of delay removes 1 complete doubling cycle from the end of the sequence, and the doubling cycles at the end are always the largest ones. The last doubling cycle on the 25-year-old's investment, from $80,000 to $160,000, generates $80,000. That is more than the total value of every earlier doubling cycle combined. Delaying by 10 years costs you that entire final cycle. Here is how to use the rule of 72 as a daily decision-making tool. When you see an interest rate on any financial product, savings account, investment fund, credit card, loan, mortgage, immediately apply the rule of 72. If it is an earning rate, you want to know how long your money takes to double. If it is a debt rate, you want to know how long your debt takes to double. These two numbers, side by side, tell you more about your financial position than any other single calculation. When someone shows you an investment with a high headline return, divide 72 by that number and ask yourself, does a doubling time of that many years seem realistic given the risk profile of this investment? A return that implies a very short doubling time implies a very high rate of return, which implies a very high level of risk. The rule of 72 is not just a compounding calculator, it is a plausibility filter. When you are deciding between paying off debt and investing, compare the 2 doubling times. If your credit card is doubling its balance every 4 years, and your index fund is doubling your invested money every 10 years, the debt is winning the compounding race in the wrong direction. Pay the debt first. When you are evaluating the cost of waiting, whether to start a savings plan, whether to make an investment, whether to pay off a loan, calculate the number of doubling cycles you are giving up. Every 10 years at 7% is 1 complete doubling cycle. Every complete doubling cycle is worth exactly half of everything that comes after it. Make the waiting cost concrete, and it becomes very difficult to keep choosing to wait. Here's what this all comes down to. The rule of 72 is not a trick. It is not a simplification that sacrifices accuracy for convenience. It is a legitimate mathematical approximation, accurate to within a fraction of a percent at most common interest rates, that has been used by mathematicians, merchants, and financiers for more than 500 years. It is the fastest, reliable way to make exponential growth visible to a human brain that is not naturally wired to perceive it. 72 divided by your interest rate equals your doubling time. That is the tool. Use it on your savings rate. Use it on your investment fees. Use it on your debt interest rate. Use it on inflation. Use it on every rate you encounter in your financial life until the calculation becomes reflexive, until your brain automatically translates interest rates into doubling times the way it translates miles per hour into arrival times. Because the people who are building wealth are not performing calculations that are more complicated than this. They are performing this calculation more consistently than everyone else. And consistency, applied to a simple, accurate tool, is the entire difference. 72. Divide. No.